to start off, she gave you a little information about me. I wanted to start off by telling you a little about myself. My passion for encouragement basically started because I had to learn how to encourage myself and receive encouragement. I had gone through a troubled childhood where I was depressed and suicidal. And I started church when I was 7, and growing up through my teen years, I never had anyone to talk to. I literally would pray at night and just beg God for just one friend. Can I just have one person? And I was in 12th grade before I had my first friend. I was in college when I learned how to talk and how to open up and overcome. And so God became my rock. For many years, He's all I had. So I always know no matter what goes on and what happens with people, He's there. And so obviously He helped me not to commit suicide, to get through that. And then in college, He helped me to receive healing. One of the really awesome things about having my friend Cynthia here today is we met in college, we were roommates, and all the people who helped me over the years, she was the most instrumental vessel that God used to help me learn to talk. She was the one that walked me through it, helped me pray, and helped me get healed for that. So it's really awesome to have her sharing this. Then God encouraged me first. And once you have Him as a rock, it doesn't matter. A lot of people stumble with their faith. But when you go through times that He's all you have, He's all you know, then you don't lose that. You just don't lose that. And so people over the years have asked me why I have such strong faith, and when you go through that, I learned to receive encouragement. I learned then to encourage myself. And I developed my passion. And one of my main mission statements is, if each person took 1 minute every day to give a compliment or a word of encouragement to another, it could change the world. And I try to pass that. My topic for today is how to play nice in a fallen world. We live in a world where there's just so much negativity. There's constant debates. You can't be online looking at the news. You can't be on Facebook or social media and not see debates. Let's fight for this cause. Let's debate this cause. No, your side is wrong. No, my side is wrong. All these debates, all this negativity. There's all these stresses, family, friends, the workplace, the world. And so I like to talk about ways that we can not let that affect us as much, be able to get through it. And mainly what it boils down to is we need to be kind to each other, and we need to be a friend to ourselves. If we can focus on those two things, it will help us with everything else. I've made some observations over the years, and these are basically my key points to speak on today of things I've come to believe from observations I've made throughout my life. One is I've learned that sometimes something can become so subconsciously ingrained in you that it becomes a habit that you're used to and comfortable with, but it's not a good thing. And one of the examples is back from when I was in college and roommates with Cynthia. I was about 22 or 23 years old, and it was the middle of the day, and I was in my room, and I was laying in the bed, the blanket over my head. It was the middle of the day, just laying there covered up. And she comes in the room, and she laughs, and she says, "You look like you're hiding from the world." And I was like, "I am." I was just sad. And she knew me well enough because of all the conversations. She said, "You know what your problem is? You are so used to being down. You're so used to feeling depressed that even when nothing is wrong, you find a way to feel depressed or to feel down because that's what you're used to." Light bulb moment. That was one of my first light bulb moments. To realize I didn't really need to be laying in bed with a blanket over my head and feeling down. I had a good life. I was in college. I was making friendships for the first time. God was blessing me. I was growing. I was doing all kinds of awesome stuff. I have mother and stepfather who dropped out of high school. I have brothers who dropped out of high school, brothers who became incarcerated. 2 brothers still incarcerated now, 27 years later. God did good things for me. I was in a good place. I overcame all that. And so that light bulb moment. So we have to look at things that maybe we've gotten comfortable and used to. Like people say sometimes someone who's a child of an alcoholic marries an alcoholic. Well, that wasn't a good choice. in an unhealthy way, that's your comfort level. So we need to recognize those things in ourselves. Also, another thing I've seen and try to talk to people about is we don't really have a lot of control, limited control over the thoughts that come to mind. The initial thoughts, if you're in a situation and a thought comes to you, a negative thought of being hard on yourself, I messed up, or this person hurt me, all these thoughts just come to you. But you can control how long it lingers. You can control how long you dwell on that thought and find ways. One of the things I've done over the years there was a time several years ago, about 12 years ago, I was going through a really rough time, really dealing with some stress and depression. And I came up with 3 quotes that really helped. And I typed them up, printed out about 5 or 6 of them, put one on my mirror, one in the fridge, one here. I even have a quote right now typed on my computer monitor at work. Things to draw me back, that if I start to go down that trail, start to linger on that negativity or let this person affect me. And the reason I have a quote at work is because I have someone in the workplace who affects me. So when I go to my and the quote is actually something like, focus on what you know is the truth. Because some people like to say things that aren't true. So sometimes it's just coming up with these little tricks, these little ways, these little methods, to kind of snap yourself back out of the situation and have little things that encourage yourself. I've learned about the power of encouragement. I've seen what it can do. I've seen what it's done to me. I've seen what it's done to others. And I see it as something that when you truly take time to encourage someone, how I describe it is you are nurturing that person's heart and soul. When you encourage someone, it's not like just make them smile for a minute or give them a moment to feel happy. When you really take the time to encourage someone and to care and be there, you nurture their heart, you nurture their soul. Sometimes, a lot of times people think, well, I don't really know how to make a difference. I don't really know how to help somebody. I don't know the magic words to say. But there are such simple ways that you can make that difference. Sometimes it's just being there. Sometimes it's just caring enough to listen. Sometimes it's just acknowledging something. And I had 2 examples to share, one from years ago in high school and one from just last year as a couple of examples. I like to share my story. This is the first part of my book of how I learned to receive encouragement. When I was in the 12th grade, I had an English teacher named Mr. Davison, and it's really cool. Now we're Facebook friends. We keep up together, and I see how cool he's done in other areas. But one day in high school, in 12th grade English, around Christmas time, I was sitting at my desk, and I was just depressed. And I never, ever had someone to talk to. I didn't know how to tell anyone that I was depressed. I didn't know any way to reach out. And one day, Mr. Davison walked over to my desk and simply said to me, you know, Mary, sometimes people just get depressed around Christmas time. And he walked away. That was it. He didn't sit and have a conversation with me. He didn't say any magic words, but he saw. He saw that I was hurting and made that meant the world. That was over 30 years ago. And it's still, I still think about those things. He touched my life. He impacted me. That was the first time. I was 17 years old in 12th grade. And that was the first time. And I had dealt with depression all throughout my high school years. That was the first time. Not even at home did it happen. That someone saw little ways you can make a difference. Another example from just last year, I was at a public place of business. And people who know me, Cynthia will attest, I talk to strangers. Doesn't matter. I can walk up to you and have a conversation right now. I talk to people in the store. I've made friends by phone. I have a friend, Rose, I've known for 23 years, met her on the phone, talked for 2 years on the phone. Now we fly back and forth and visit each other. That's just what I do. But I look for opportunities, and I try to be aware of people around me. And here's the example, too, of ways to help people. Last year, I was in a place of business, and I saw this woman, we'll call her Sarah. And we're just complete strangers in a public place. But I saw the expression on her face. And I said, you look scared. And she was making some choices and transitions. She was in her 50s and making a total change in her life and what she was doing. One of those things where I have the courage to step out and do something. And I said, you look scared. I didn't know her. And she looked at me, she goes, I'm terrified. I'm in my 50s. I'm doing something totally different. I'm going back to school. I am just terrified. And we had this conversation and she felt so much better. And then now we're keeping in touch. Later she said, wow, because I just paid attention. Things we could all do every day if there's so much distraction. Nowadays we're all on the computer, we're on social media, we're on the cell phones. And even in public we're not really paying attention. Even in public we're still on our phones and doing other things. But when you're around people, with the person, if you not just look at them, but look, make that eye contact and see that person looks scared. You don't even have to get that personal, but just notice things, you can make a difference. There's also a choice of making the choice of what to focus on, positives or negatives. All of us have positives and negatives, and I've seen times where I start thinking on the negatives, how I have 3 brothers that ended up in prison, this and that. I could focus on the negatives, or I could focus on the positives, the people that God has surrounded me with. It is the people that I'm not related to who gave me all the things that my biological relationships did not give me. So I don't need to focus on the negatives of what I don't have from biological side of my world. Look at the people, the friendships, the people that God's put around me. I am so blessed. God has done a lot. Singer Vivian Green said, "Life is not about waiting for the storms to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain." If we're going through struggles or problems and we're waiting to get through it or past it to enjoy life again, that's going to be a hard road. You're always going to have struggles. You're always going to have opposition. You're always going to have obstacles. But it's like I said, choosing little ways to just work through it. One of the things I've developed with myself is to look for positives and negatives. And out of every negative situation, I try to find something positive. And the example I'll give is how I came to write my book. And I had talked for years about writing a book. Cynthia and I were roommates in college. We were 22, 23 years old. I should write a book one day, and she was taking classes to be an artist. I'll illustrate it. And we did. But I kept talking about it for years. I never actually stopped to write it. At what point am I actually going to write this book I've talked about? In August of 2009, my oldest brother, Charles, committed suicide. And I was foster parenting. I had been foster parenting for 2 years and a month, teenage girls. I would have up to 3 girls at a time. And 2 weeks before he committed suicide, my last 3 girls had been moved back home. So I was in transition, waiting for my next call of, "Mary, we have more girls for you." And my brother committed suicide. And so here I'm coming, and I had to take a break, tell the agency I'm going to have to stop fostering for a while. You got to take care of yourself. So I'm going through these weeks of coming home and just being sad and just grieving, that my brother committed suicide. And again, I look for positives and negatives. When there's a negative situation, I try to find something positive. Well, I couldn't find anything positive in that situation. My brother was gone, and he'd been miserable all his life. One of the things I talk about is how your past doesn't dictate your future. Our childhood did not dictate my future, but it dictated his. He was in and out of prison and jail all of his life. And he had a quote that he often said when we hung up the phone. And life moves miserably along. That's how he lived life. So he took his life. And so as I'm going through the grieving process, nothing positive. I can't find something positive. You know what I came up with one day? I'm going to create something positive. I've been talking about writing a book. I've been wanting to write a book about encouragement. Why not start it now during this time? So I made it become something positive. It's still a negative thing. I still lost my brother. But during those months of grieving, I started writing a book on the power of encouragement. And what is really, really amazing, Anne did not know when she invited me to speak today that this date has significance to me. She just said, "Oh, we're going to have it on the 4th Thursday in May." And I'm looking on my calendar, and I looked at that date. And I didn't tell her. I was going to wait and tell her today. And I'm glad I didn't, since she couldn't make it. I ended up telling her on the phone last week. Today would have been that brother's 50th birthday. Today is the 50th birthday, or would have been, of the brother who gave up on life. And here I'm talking about how to be happy in a negative world. That has to be God. God did this. And my friend pointed out to me, because I was talking to Cynthia, there's got to be significance that God has me speaking on this at this date, on his birthday. He's not here, and this is 50th. She said, yeah, God's taken a negative and turned it to a positive. Now May 26th is a positive day. Something negative became positive. There's power to choose we have power to choose how we handle disappointments. There's an author, John Maxwell, who wrote a book called Failing Forward, which I've read and I highly recommend. Failing Forward by John Maxwell. What that subject is about, what he writes about in his book, is we're all going to have failures. We're all going to fall down at times. But do you allow that failure to throw you back and you fall back? Or do you allow it to propel you and to fail forward? Which means you grow from it, you learn from it, you turn to something positive. Like when I fell backward because of my brother's suicide, but then I propelled myself forward and wrote this book. You can choose how you handle these things. Also, I've learned I come up with different quotes over the years. My friends know very well I have these quotes that I say very often. And one of them I say when a friend is just feeling down and being hard on themselves because they made a mistake. They did this, they shouldn't have done it, or I should have done this, and they're being hard on themselves. One of the quotes I've come up with, I say to my friends is, if you learn from it, it's not wasted. If you learn from it, it's not wasted. You can still have the regret. You can still wish you did things differently. But if you learn from it, maybe you're not going to make that mistake again. One of the things I've seen too, speaking of being negative and living in a negative world, something I've noticed about some people, we probably all, or most of us, know people who criticize others a lot, who are always talking about others in a negative way. That every time they're around them, or most of the time, they're talking about someone. Oh, he is a judgmental, they're critical. I've come to a conclusion on those group of people. People who focus all their time and energy to criticize others are simply distracting themselves from dealing with their own issues, their own weaknesses, their own struggles. I personally know people like that. And I know, because I know them personally, they have some weaknesses that they really should work on. I'm not just saying that being judgmental. Seriously, I'm always working on mine. Cynthia and I discuss everything in our lives, and we discuss each other's issues. Oh, girl, I'm working on this. We should be working on ourselves. But those people who are criticizing others, they're totally resisting and refusing to look in the mirror. So we shouldn't focus on criticizing others. We should work on ourselves and personal growth. I have a young friend named Xander. His mother, Rose, she's the one I mentioned. I met her on the phone 23 years ago. We talked by phone for 2 years, and we started flying back and forth. Her oldest son is Xander. He's now 21 years old in the Air Force. When I wrote my book, I wanted to have stories in it. This happened, I wanted every reader to be able to connect. I have a woman who went through domestic violence and had to go to a shelter. I have this. Xander at the time was 16 years old, and I was so amazed at what an intelligent kid he was. And the intuition he had, the insight, the maturity. I said, Xander, I want you to write something about yourself and how you've came to think the way you do. And I put it in the book. And my favorite part of what he wrote at the age of 16 is that we should not focus on being the best at something. We should focus on being the best version of ourselves. It's not about competing with each other, whether it's in the workplace or anywhere. It's not about being the best secretary or the best singer or the best writer. Each of us can do our best at being ourselves. And at 16, he knew that. He had already discovered, I just need to be the best me. And he is. That's what he focuses on. George Bernard Shaw, another author, he said, life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. You often hear young people, especially young people, or people in their 20s or different ages and going through life things, I'm trying to find myself. Well, that's a long road, and you can get lost, and you can go on a lot of trending trails. It's not about going and finding yourself. It's about creating yourself. Looking inside, what are your dreams? What do you want to be? What things have you always wanted to accomplish? What things are causing you struggles? What things are hindering you? Don't go outward to look for yourself. Go inward. Discover your loves, what your interests. What do you want to do? What's your career? Like for me, I've always wanted to encourage people. That's all I want to do. So that's what I'm creating. That I'm writing, I'm speaking, I'm talking to people different places. That's what makes me happy. It's about creating yourself. So I've created this person who's an encourager. I've created this person who wants to be a speaker. To go around, create yourself. One of the greatest gifts that a person, if you want the main gift that you can give someone else, this is it. Pure acceptance. Pure acceptance. The people that in your life that you encounter feel the freedom of just being themselves with you. That if you and I spend time together, and you know that you don't have to put on any pretenses. You don't have to be in a happy mood. You can be sad around me. You can be down. You can be negative. You can just be yourself at all times when you're with me. Isn't that awesome? How would it feel if someone made you feel that way? That you always could be totally yourself and around them, completely free. How about the awesomeness of you giving that to someone else? So I encourage you to strive that, for us all to do that, to don't not judge or criticize or not listen, but just allow everyone to just be themselves. There's different compliments I have received over the years from friends, coworkers, strangers, and that. And there's a couple of compliments that people have given me that I most treasure. Like, oh my gosh, that means the world. Quotes, compliments that will actually make me tear up. One of the compliments I've received from multiple friends is, I can be completely myself with you. Completely myself. I have a friend named Shawn I've known for 25 years, and a few years ago she and I were talking, and I was telling her that week at work, I work in college financial aid. I said, man, so many students this week, I've been talking with them, and they just all of a sudden just open up and just start sharing and talking. You know, it's just amazing. And she looked at me, she said, well, Mary, that's because you're like a priest. You just make everybody want to talk to you. Like, well, that's interesting, and that's a neat compliment, okay. Another compliment I've received that means the world to me is people have said to me, I can tell you anything, and you will not judge me. How amazing is that? That one person can make another person feel that way. I can absolutely say anything. I can share anything. I can tell you any mistake I've made in the past. I can tell you any struggle I'm having now. And you won't judge me, and you won't think less of me. I actually have a friend that told me over the years, she said, I used to have struggles feeling that God was upset with me because I messed up. I used to have struggles, but realizing fully how much God loved me. I really couldn't grasp it. And with your friendship, I've now grasped it, because I keep thinking, if Mary can love me no matter what, how much more so can God the Father love me? And that was just loving her in spite of anything going on, in spite of any mistakes or failures or weaknesses. She realized, wow, if a human being can love me like that, man, God loves me. He doesn't judge me. If anything else I could leave today for you to walk away with and take with you is back to my two main points earlier. If nothing else from today, be kind to each other. Acknowledge people, see each other, see the person around you. You have no idea the things you could see. Last week, Cynthia was in Walmart, shopping in the pharmacy, and there was this older guy there, just a customer with his wife, much older man. And she's also loves to help encourage people. And somehow a conversation struck up, and she paid attention to his face and to his expression. He was hurting. And so she said some things to minister to him, and this older man teared up. He teared up in Walmart because another human being saw him and was kind to him and acknowledged something. This little conversation, a short conversation, she touched his life. And he walked away from that feeling uplifted. And lastly, be a friend to yourself. You know, there's an expression that we are our worst enemy. That's true. We're harder on ourselves. You know, there's people I know in my life that are so hard on themselves. And I told you I have a lot of quotes I come up with. And one of my quotes, I'm talking to a friend that's being hard on themselves, is, be nice to my friend. I have ended many phone calls with, and take care of my friend. And what really gets them is when I say, take care of yourself the way I would if I was there. Oh, Mary, that's a tall order. I don't know if I'll be nice to my friend. Take care of my friend. So we need to be a friend to ourselves. Encourage yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. Look at the things you want to accomplish and nurture and encourage those things. Everyone has dreams. Everyone has goals. Maybe you've reached your goals or you're reaching them now. Maybe you have dreams you haven't even started on. It's never too late until it's too late. Until you're gone. You're still here. So go for those dreams. Be a friend to yourself and nurture yourself.